Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the Mother Krampus Christmas horror movie. Original title was 12 Deaths of Christmas, made in 2017. Now, I watched and reviewed Mrs. Claus yesterday based on the box art. It had a scary maternal figure dressed up as Mrs. Claus, and it was terrible. So, deciding which one to watch and review today, I was scrolling through my options, and I happened across Mother Krampus. Box art had a maternal figure dressed up in the spirit of Christmas, and decided, you know what, compare and contrast might not be so terrible of a thing. So off I went, and what I wound up with was, not to just make this an entire comparison between the two movies, but in relation to Mrs. Claus, I thought that this one actually had a decent production value to it. What it fell prey to more than anything else was really bad characters and storyline, which is ultimately just the meat of the movie, so you still had a bit of a mess. But to get into more details, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot of this one, I gave 4 out of 25 points. This was a fairly muddled mess of a mythos, which is super fun to say, but not so fun to watch. It just wasn't explained very well. It wasn't delivered very well. And honestly, I'm not convinced that it was fleshed out fairly well behind the scenes at all so that it could be delivered well. This followed the main character of Vanessa, who is taking her daughter Amy to her father's house, Vanessa's father's house, for Christmas, and is in this remote village, and she is recently separated from her husband. 2 months prior, he left and is out of the picture. Amy, her daughter, is still trying to reconcile this, and while they're in this remote town, children start vanishing and being taken, and there is this mythos that is spoken about by the elders of Frau Perchta, and I think it was just referred to once as Mother Krampus, but ultimately this was regarding Frau Perchta, which was generally just a witch. And honestly, I can't really explain it a whole lot better than that, because it wasn't explained a whole lot better than that in the movie to me. Regardless, it winds up with a showdown on the last night at their doorstep, and so on and so forth. The characters were just not terribly interesting. I had no protagonist to speak of to latch onto. I thought that Claire Maria Fox did a fairly admirable job portraying Vanessa. It just wasn't written very well. The intent, I gave a 6 out of 25. This was going for serious. It failed. It was going for scary. It failed. It was also going for silly kills. In that case, it did kind of succeed in some areas. Some of them were good. So that's kind of where it gets the intent points there. But for any other intention it had, I think it pretty much failed. The acting, I gave an 8 out of 25. This was better than Mrs. Claus, but still not good or great. The dialogue was delivered with a modicum of competency, but that's honestly the best compliment that I can give it. So 8 out of 25. The technical, I gave a 6 out of 25. The blood and the makeup and the special effects, I think, were average at best. Some of the creativity of the kills did have a certain level of, competency to the technical prowess of making it believable on screen, but just nothing mind-blowing about it. One thing to note, it's not really a compliment or anything against the movie, it's just something to note, is this is the second movie I can think of that has a death by an electric turkey carver. Interesting there. But as far as anything else on the technical category, the camera work, the editing, not terrible, not good, not great, not terrible. It just kind of winds up being a less than average so-so movie overall. So technical gets a 6 out of 25, gives us a total of 24 out of 100. I would honestly recommend skipping this one entirely. I would say even more so than Mrs. Claus, even though this one has a higher score. Mainly because Mrs. Claus had the benefit of being able to be riffed and railed on by a group of friends having fun. This one, I just think not so much. It wasn't coherent enough. It wasn't, it didn't have that sense of playfulness about it that people could latch onto. This was just a dreary, muddled mess, and I would recommend passing it entirely, no matter what the circumstances. It just wasn't good enough. So that should about do it for Mother Krampus. Thank you for joining me here today. Hopefully tomorrow's going to be a little better, and but we'll see. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.